There's a discussion big thing happening with country music right now. If you want to delve into that.
The most ignorant possible thing could happen is he was yelling out the N-word. And hey, there's never a time. There's never a right reason. There's never a right argument. There's never, and rightfully so. I think he's gone. I think they stripped him of everything. I'm curious what we wanted to talk about, Lawrence, was the Constitution Commission.
Well, I mean, this hasn't been done or really exercised since Louis Riel's time, right, when he initiated his own government. You know, we were kind of following a little bit of what he organized. So we're deciding that framework ourselves, and we're deciding our own government, and we're deciding our own constitution, and we're putting that in front of them. You know, so this is our best option right now.
Welcome, folks. I'm the Captain, Ross Memphis Pambrun, and with me as always, my friend, the President, Lawrence Gervais. We're broadcasting from Calgary in Region 3 of the Métis Nation of Alberta, which is part of the historic Métis Nation homeland. We would also like to acknowledge these lands are the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda, with whom we share this land on the basis of our historical and ongoing relationships. We would also like to say thank you to our First Nation friends, to the Métis settlements, and to our Métis brothers and sisters and families. We would also like to give thanks to our elders for their guidance and to Mother Earth for the time she allows us to be here and share her bounty. And now, folks, let's get the wheel squeaking. Well, Lawrence, let's jump right into it. And I know, usually one of the strengths of the squeaky wheel is a positive connection, positive relationships. I think this was a difficult week for our nation, for our region, for our friends, our artists, and a big somber comment to our loss of an individual who was a guest on our show, Amy Willier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we wish everybody well. You know, the Jobin family, Williers. It is a huge impact in the Indigenous community, First Nations and Métis here in Calgary, and they were kind of the staple down in Inglewood. They had their own shop, Moonstone Creations, and you know, we always look forward to going in there, at least having a visit and a sit down with Yvonne, her mom, and herself, and them offering you something to drink and just sitting down with their beating table and just having a conversation, which I always look forward to when I go down there. But if I had a meeting and I was passing through the neighborhood, I would always try to stop in there.
And I was quite shaken up. It's difficult. Loss is always difficult, and I like to think that our citizens, our families, are coming together to be supportive. And I know that there was definitely a lot of conversation and a lot of connection. And I wish her family and her extended family the best. I think that our time that she shared with us here on the Squeaky Wheel, very bright, a lot of energy, and I hope the rest of her family continues to carry on that spirit, because I appreciated my time with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I think it's important that we had this conversation right at the start, that again, we are going to enjoy the podcast for what we do when it comes to our connection, our sharing of awareness within the Métis Nation. We do continue to move forward. And I think one of those things that we wanted to talk about, or I was curious that we wanted to talk about, Lawrence, was the Constitution Commission. You have a strong familiarity with that. And, you know, as we move into this week's Squeaky Wheel, anything politics is always just one more difficult conversation. But, as we respectfully move forward, talk a little bit about the challenges that are happening within that this new development, how we're going to build.
Well, I mean, it is a self-government constitution, so it does have to be ratified by our members. It does take some time. Their deadline is another 7 months from now to really engage the community in a meaningful discussion about this new draft of the Constitution. So, and right now it is a draft and there's no vote. It's nothing in, in cement or nothing like that. We've had 2 roundtables so far and pretty good feedback so far. There's some things that, people need to be accustomed to because it's a new way of changing on how we relate to the nation and even what we're called and even, new mapping and new structure and all that stuff is going to be brand new to us. And, how do we adjust to that, later on too? So, and then also staying transparent and accountable to our members on, what we do for the nation. So I know those discussions are happening and they're just starting. They'll go right till August and then they'll be ratified by our members. So all of us will have a chance to vote on it in a democratic way and see how it goes.
The rollout, because I know you mentioned and there's been conversation before about renaming, re-identifying. Has this been done before? Is this part of the process that happens as an agency, as a nation gets stronger, gets bigger, gets more aware that there's larger responsibilities that we're taking on? Is this what happens at that level?
Well, I mean, right now our current governance structure follows the Societies Act because we're all incorporated as nonprofits, and we do have to have a transfer ceremony at some point with Canada when they acknowledge our self-government, and it has to go through their process too and to be ratified. So once it comes from our members, we recognize our own system as a nation. Then Canada will obviously have to lend its ear and possibly support to what we come up with, right, as members.
Well, I like to think that that's their intention. I mean, That would be the responsible thing to do. The recognition of the necessity, the inclusive connection of self-government, of the nation representation. I like to think that they're going to be there to support something like that. Well,
I mean, this hasn't been done or really exercised since Louis Riel's time, right, when he initiated his own government. So, we were kind of following a little bit of what he organized, but at the same time, we're a progressive nation. We certainly our members are quite large and extensive across the homeland. So we have to be very, the Métis Nation of Alberta is very clear on their direction from the Métis Nation Accord that was signed with Canada and the MNC, as well as Alberta. And then, of course, our own agreements with Alberta currently. So we're deciding that framework ourselves, and we're deciding our own government, and we're deciding our own constitution, and we're putting that in front of them. So this is our best option right now.
Daunting. Now, if we were to talk a little bit about the MNBC, where are they when it comes to that same relationship? I don't follow them as closely as likely you do. What's happening on their side of things, and what will we see when it comes to the same conversation?
Yeah, they don't currently have a sort of framework or an agreement with Canada, so they're kind of wanting to get a little more in their system, but with recent election that happened and everybody was elected fairly, and then of course they through their meetings had decided to suspend the current provincial president. Well, that kind of takes a little bit of step back because now they have to deal with that situation before they move forward. And if she does come back, well, then they have to understand that there's going to be an adjustment there also. If she doesn't, well, then they still have to adjust to that. So, yeah, and she had a significant role with Métis National Council too. So, there's a gap there to fulfill. With Métis National Council's, future, we're just not sure of that either because we haven't had a meeting there for a couple of years, and I'm sure we all want to get to the table, and I'm sure COVID has a lot of things to do with that because us meeting in general or having a frank discussion or serious discussion, we need to have that as delegates for the MNC. So I'm not sure what's going to happen if we decide to have one by Zoom and a new election of a president. That would be vital. And like I said in the past podcasts, I'm in support of a new president that can unite the Métis Nation and not keep the division the way it is now. So,
yeah, and actually, even in the sense of the MNC, perhaps if they were to pull the reins back a little bit, recognize that they have a role in a collective relationship, but maybe allow the provinces to manage some of the issues that they're dealing with at a provincial level, and then use that strength. Allow them to take a little bit of the time, develop that within the province, and then bring that strength on a national level.
Yeah. Well, MNC's role as a secretariat, that's, people have to understand that that's the role of them. They, it's the provinces that represent the members.
Yeah.
And, they certainly, MNC has a role in that too. But that has to be, it's limited to the provinces and our negotiations with government, because we know our needs, the needs in, another province may be a little bit different than ours. And then
true.
the MNO situation that's happening on Ontario in, them sort of, they're feeling like they're left out of the conversation or the decisions, and MNC has a stance that they did have a chance to do what they needed to do to prove that these communities are part of the Métis Nation, but with the general population of the homeland and how we're feeling, is we want them to resolve that situation in the best manner possible. But until that comes, we are going to continue supporting our Tri-Council, our relationships with Canada. MNO currently has one also with Canada, so we honor that too. And we're just going to try to deal with this situation, and it's an adjustment for the whole Métis Nation because we're moving forward. This is something that's, I think, was bound to happen as soon as we got new agreements with Canada, that the whole landscape of the homeland would change, the political landscape.
And I guess in an allowance, the role of the MNC isn't necessarily to solve everything at a provincial level, but to also carry on some of the conversations at the national federal level. So maybe it's all moving forward, incremental steps. Yeah, I feel like here in Alberta, we're making great strides. You explaining a little bit about the MNBC, that's a bit of a tough step back, but it's a necessary one.
Yeah, I mean, supporting MNC and supporting MNA, because supporting MNC as a delegate and where we're headed. But to be quite honest, if we don't have any meetings, we put MNC's standing in jeopardy a little bit. And that's what a lot of us are a little bit worried about now, because we're getting a little bit too far without actually engaging one another.
That's a good point of opening the dialogue between the provinces as well. Yeah. No, I like it.
Yeah, so you had something about the stock market you want to talk about. I'm not sure if you had GameSpot shares or what it is.
Many moons ago, I invested in the stock market. That didn't go so well. That's got to be 25, 30 years ago. And then, as things kicked around again, I was re-exploring my relationship with the market and or such. And it's for lack of a better term, it's like its own sense of gambling. If you do well, boy, it sure does feel good. But you sometimes realize you could have done better if you'd waited longer. And sometimes you may invest in something and all of a sudden realize it was a poor investment and watch it go down. So all of the same highs and lows are happening. And I guess that's the reason they use the term that it's a market. It's a stock market. This last couple weeks, the idea that the big companies out there do a lot of have the ability to control the markets. Now what happened was you get a bunch of people who are interested in supporting one of their products, as you mentioned, GameStop. So that was not one that I necessarily got involved in, but there were a couple of situations where I've noticed things that I'm interested in. They shot up dramatically. And what they're doing essentially is, and we're going to say young people, because there was a predominance of people or gamers who were have an emotional attachment to the GameStop, the stores that used to be in the malls. Well, in the world of shorting stocks, people were buying on that failing. And I think that's what made it so hard for everybody and all these young people and investors who said, I'm not comfortable with companies buying based on it failing. That's not fair. So because they were emotionally attached to it, they said, how about this? You're buying based on that it's going to fail. Let's make it successful. Let's make it make money. Well, all of a sudden, the stock shot up in ways nobody had ever seen before. Like it's almost not safe. It's not healthy. It's gone up from, I think it was $87 to nearly $400. And it was cresting so high. Well, all of the companies that bet on it to fail, they owed money. They owed the money for that. So the gamers were winning. At the end of the day, a large part of the conversation is there's going to be a lot of losers, a lot of people who are going to go away crying because they got in at the wrong times. They got in at the wrong ways. They got in for the wrong reasons. Now, if you could invest and lose a couple $100, but you think you made a point, and you very well may have, okay. And you may have also invested and made some money. It's the ups and downs of the market. But as we gain momentum with our ability to use social media, it'll be interesting to see how that controls a lot of the markets. It was controlling what was happening down in Capitol Hill there a couple weeks ago with somebody saying, let's all get together and protest. Whew. It's ugly.
Well, the hedge fund people, the billionaires, weren't pretty happy with GameStop. We know that. And that was, they were target number one because they're like, well, they control the economy and they're forcing the CEO GameStop to turn their backs on their investors too, to shut everything down and stop the trade, right? So that was a whole thing that, well, who really holds the power here? But what I look at it, I look at the good points of it. And I think what it did is it got a lot of these young people wanting to look at investing their money for other future stuff and having to understand the stock market and how that is run. So there's some benefits to this whole thing at the end of the day.
Well, I think
to the ones who lost their money, it's pretty sad. But
I think it's learning. And again, many, many moons ago when I lost all my money on one stock, it was off the market a month later. Is this how this is supposed to work? And it kept me away for a long time. But now I think I understand a little bit better. I'm very cautious of how I do things. But by the same token, it does bring people into the conversation. And maybe that's not such a bad thing.
No.
Gets people investing. Lawrence, you wanted to talk about, and actually I'm really excited if you could give us a little bit more of a rundown on the World Professional Chuck Wagon Association. I know we've talked about it before. We're Métis. I love the Chucks. You love the Chucks. There's a strong connection within our culture when it comes to rodeo, when it comes to the Chuck Wagons. You got a little bit more of an inroad as to what's happening than I do. Let's banter that around a little bit.
Yeah, I think with the WPCA, so the World Professional Chuck Wagon Association, have planned is this new schedule format. It's supposed to save travel dollars for a lot of the drivers because of this COVID impacts of last year is probably taking a toll on them this year financially. So they want to make sure that they're not traveling as much, and also allows them at least a bit of a break in between. So there's not a race every weekend and they're traveling all the time, that they actually have some time to sort of, regroup and then head out and go out to the next race, right? So, yeah, what they have planned, they're starting in May. What's unique and what I find a little bit interesting is, everything being around the COVID restrictions, because we don't know how that's going to be for racing either. And are they allowing people in the stands? And we know last year the Canadian Chuck Wagons, they had cancellation up there, but then there was some side tournaments that were happening. I think DJ King was the one that was kind of running the show up there, but they were having races and people were separating, and I didn't hear of any huge impacts happening, but it's a little bit north when the numbers were a little low. So here in the South, I'm not sure. The plan is also to have the Century Downs World Finals here in Calgary, so behind the big mall here in Balzac. So that's going to be exciting to see all that too, racing down here, close by me anyways. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
The much like you, and I know you and I have both been behind the scenes at rodeos, behind the scenes by the families of the chuck wagon families, and it's always such a good time. Those families, their animals are part of their family. They care for them just as much as they care for their children. In some cases, I guess we should probably evaluate how that works. But right, these are people who love their animals, love sport. I don't see how you could create a bubble in the world of chuck wagon racing. The Century Downs thing, very excited about. I know you and I want to get a chance to spend more time. Either tagging along a little bit or having more conversations with all of the people within the world of the chuck wagon associations. I think that would be fun. I just think now what we need to figure out is, and they need to figure out is, boy, how are they going to, come together, hopefully race, maybe not tax themselves, the system as much. But unlike the NHL bubble, I'm not too sure how that would work. But sadly, we're going to miss some of the good times you have after hours behind the scenes, because those people know how to have a good time.
Well, I don't know. I think last Stampede we were at the infield and watched the Chucks. You took off to go see your wife, and you missed out a good party in the barn. So that's after we left the infield, and you're like, "Where's Ross going?" Right? So
there was a lot of days that we were there, so I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and we sat with Cody Ridsdale. And he was hopping along. He hurt his ankle, but we were back there.
I guess my shout out to the chuck wagons is, if you need somebody to just be there to ride back and hold the reins after the race in order to ride back in front of the stands. If I can be in the bubble, you let me know, folks, and I'd like to be in one of those chuck wagons as we come around.
I think now you wanted to closely related to our Western stuff here in Southern Alberta, but there's a discussion big thing happening with country music right now. If you want to delve into that.
Oh, Lawrence, and it's hard. We've commented a lot on our show about racism. How do we approach racism? The conversation about racism. You didn't open up a can of worms. All you did was say, there's a big can of worms sitting over there, Ross. Just dig your hands down into that, because being country, being an artist myself, this last year with the Country Music Awards, and there was already issues with young artist Morgan Wallen. And I was very concerned about a lot of the issues that had been happening. His mistakes regarding his rudeness when it came to alcohol, his actions as a result of his drinking, as he was leading up to the SNL. Do you remember that one? He was supposed to be on it.
Didn't get a DUI or something, or intoxication at Kid Rock's Pambrun or something. And
and it didn't seem as though he had just recently had a family, but he wasn't still with her anymore. So then he's being caught all sorts of places. Well, and SNL said, but you've done so well, we're going to bring you on. Then he was partying without his mask on. And then they said, well, I'm sorry, you can't. But and the communities were still forgiving him. And they still said, we're going to bring you on SNL. And then the most ignorant possible thing could happen is there he is sounds like his own party, and in front of another group of people, in one of the worst, harshest things you could do in any situation, is he was yelling out the N-word. And there's never a time, there's never a right reason, there's never a right argument, there's never. And is there not somebody who can handle an individual and say, you've already made a number of mistakes, you're causing nothing but yourself harm, your family harm. All of the people who have supported you have built you up, and rightfully so. I think he's gone. I think they stripped him of everything in the country music world.
Walking away from him, his management, like you name it. And there's a difference between outlaw country in the 70s and 80s than what it is now. He probably could have lasted a little bit with his bad personality and turn it into a positive at some point in time. But when you start using racial slurs or you start getting into that area, you won't have any support at all.
No.
And it's unfortunate. You might be a talented guy, but there's a lot of people that were waiting for an opportunity like he had too.
Yeah.
And they were kind of swept aside and focused on Morgan. But what about those artists too and how they're feeling? Right. So yeah, it's really too bad that it's happening to a young guy.
Yeah.
But, he has to learn. He is from, Tennessee himself and probably needs to get away from some of those lifestyles down there. Maybe, and that's one of the things that, if I was his manager, I would focus on is get your head on right, stick to the plan and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Don't go backwards. Right.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Don't go backwards. And he just kept skirting a line and going backwards. And, you look at the positive influences on our youth, the cast into the light, certain sports heroes, artists, they have a responsibility, right? Yeah. They're being watched all the time. They have a responsibility. And sometimes I think they're concerned that it's that responsibility is being thrust on them. Our pro athletes going, well, this really isn't what I signed up for. No, but you did sign up for the limelight. You did sign up to be on the center stage. And if you're going to be on that center stage, you have to be respectful, responsible, and you have to carry that torch that says, I'm going to do the best I can. And people help me ensure that I don't, cross lines or help me learn from it. But this young guy was just crossing the line over and over and over.
Yeah, I mean, and social media now, there's cameras around these artists all the time. I mean, they'll catch something at some point. So the ones that aren't careful have to be careful. But
no excuse. There's no excuse for it. Mm-hmm. Now, he, in a sense, misrepresents country music, and country music called him out for it. I wanted to hear one of the notes you sent me recently was about Indigenous misrepresentation. What do you mean by that specifically?
Well, people who don't understand what Section 35 means and First Nations, Métis, Inuit, but each one of those nations, or the First Nations have their sovereign treaty rights with another sovereign country like Canada. And Métis Nation is a little far behind, but we had those agreements in place at one time. And Inuit, I'm sure, has their own arrangements and agreements with Canada too. And one of those with ours is always understanding what misrepresentation means in the Métis community. Now, is it somebody who self-identifies as Métis and they just put their hands up? Or is it somebody from the Métis Nation that speaks, right, on behalf of the Métis Nation? And I'm not jumping myself into the conversation. I'm just saying of overall, right? And it's a real sensitive subject in the Métis community because a lot of them are going through a bit of an identity thing too, and some of them don't have enough or the abilities through their documentation to be able to submit to the Métis Nation to get a card, right? But they still want to do the work on behalf of the Métis Nation. And our viewpoint is always be extra careful on sort of what you ask for, because if you go through the process and not be able to get your membership, but then you want to sit in a meeting on behalf of the Métis Nation or speak for Métis Nation members like myself and yourself, you have to be a little bit careful because number one, your knowledge should be there. Your current knowledge of the government framework should be there, because you're not really lending an arm to the Métis Nation. And that's where that misrepresentation comes from, right? Some of our members are very hypersensitive to it. Some of them see a Métis person there. They're not sure if they have cards or what, and they're speaking on behalf of us. But then there's some that we know that don't have their connection to the Métis homeland, but yet they're still speaking on behalf of the Métis Nation. And that's what we find to be a little bit on going the offensive route a little bit, because you're only benefiting from yourself and it's a little self-interested, and yet the nation itself does not really benefit other than you sitting there, right? So we have to be extra careful on even how I word that too, without sounding offensive, but we should sometimes work with companies and educate them or institutions to let them know that, yes, this person is sitting there, but there's nothing to gain from the Métis Nation. And how do we fix that?
That's interesting. And you're right. It's delicate because we've had this conversation many times, and we almost sort of have it with our guests. When did you feel comfortable either acknowledging your heritage? When did you understand your heritage? When did you become involved in your heritage? And or how did it play a role in shaping you? And as I mentioned many times before, it was in my 30s when I realized my dad, who was, later in his professional career and close to retiring, was really searching his roots, his understanding of his role. And that's when I realized I'd better pay attention and I'd better learn for myself. And by no means was there any time that I was misrepresenting or trying to represent myself in any way, but it took time for me to learn that. It still took a little bit of time to get my card. It took a little bit of time for my dad to explain how we were going to get it and how and or why. So you're right. I guess what is the self-interest during the period of time that somebody's engaging? Is it purely selfish or purely for a self-motivated reason? Or is it increased awareness? Or is it because they are trying to create a better opportunity for the Métis community? But you're right. There could be a difficulty in the distinguishment of that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when I designate somebody to sit on behalf of Region 3 in certain areas, and, I do that, on a weekly basis, I always keep in mind and I always remind them that eventually you're going to have to come back to report to the Métis Nation at some point.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. And when you're going out there, you're representing me, other 14,000 members when you're sitting at the table. So keep that in mind also, right? Be mindful of this. And, it is a very sensitive topic. And if you look around the homeland, I'm sure everybody is going through that too. I'm sure First Nations go through that too, misrepresentation. And we as a community always had to just be cognizant that these people are self-interested. And, a lot of us who are leaders take an oath of, putting our self-interest aside and working for the nation. That's the most important thing in our oaths, right? So, the thing of what I'm trying to say is, when we speak of Eastern Métis or they're doing stuff within the homeland and they're doing these workshops and talking about Quebec Métis and people on the other side that are kind of trying to move in. And, we have to be very firm and say, well, no, they're not from this nation.
Right.
They might be nation unto themselves and they might be Indigenous, but they're not recognized as Métis Nation members. So they don't speak, or they've had court cases in Quebec and they've all lost them. Right? Yeah. I think there was about 18 of them, so they are trying to do their best to sort of infiltrate this. I hear of a workshop happening at the University of Northern British Columbia, and I get a little offended at that because that's my hometown too. And they're talking about Eastern Métis over there, right? And I get a little bit upset and a little temperamental because here you have, Prince George with really strong history at Fort George and strong history of the steamships that were there operating along the Fraser River and who was actually driving those ships. Might have been the English people that were the captains, but the people working those ships a lot of them were Métis folks. Fort George was a fur trading area too, right? And focus on that history. Why are we having Eastern Métis history done in Northern BC? Yeah. They should do that workshop way over in Quebec, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I can see where there's sometimes that slippery slope. I mean, I know there was fights that happened down east over English and French, and yet somehow, it's somebody's still trying to explain to me how that all turned out. But
I think you're right. I mean, in the next census that comes out, and I've strongly encouraged those people at Census Canada, please, if people are going to identify as Métis, please have them check a box for their cards, like they do in the First Nation side. If they ask, if you're a status, they'll, have to give you a number. We'll do that for the Métis also, because those people out east, they really screwed up our status numbers, like our Métis numbers. We don't quite know across Canada how many we have because they're all putting their hands up over there.
Yeah. No. Now to jump to one of the last things I think that I wanted to ask you about was, Lawrence, you'd hit on BC there a little bit, and that prompted me to think about this one. Was COVID is on everyone's mind. It's on everyone's lips. It's in every conversation. It infiltrates every aspect of us. And it's not that I want to get into the same conversations that the government provides us, or wonderful Dr. Dina Hinshaw and way she steps up, but I want to talk a little bit about the negligence of citizens. Did you hear in BC about he was a realtor and he was a bit of a stock trader. He got in all sorts of trouble, but he'd also made a lot of money. And he recently had a party in his penthouse where they figure there was good 50 to 100 people. And not the only reason he got caught, but one of the reasons it was really identified, even though there was a certain amount of noise and such, was he had 100 cheeseburgers delivered to his house from McDonald's. And enough people knew that doesn't make a lot of sense if you're, somewhat isolating with your family. Did you hear about this guy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think what I read was, it's 1,100 square foot penthouse. So that's not very big. And
no,
that many
two
people.
Stories. I think there was 2 stories.
But then I heard he had menus and a cash till and DJs and
yeah.
all these other things, right?
There was exotic dancers there. There was, and apparently whoever had shown up to the party, they were sort of told they had to be relatively quiet, not wear shoes so that they didn't make too much noise. And yet this party went on. Now, eventually they caught him, and they're still trying to, for lack of a better term, prove their case against him, even though we all know that it's likely that this has all happened for truth. But I guess that's the name of the game. The authorities still have a responsibility to prove what he had done was wrong. Now, I think he might have been let out on bail, but yeah, it never ceases to amaze me that the actions of individuals, but even some of the people who had attended, ended up saying, this is not right. And they left. This isn't morally, ethically correct for us to be here. Well, to me, that's the best decision somebody could make. But, oh, Lawrence, somebody's got to explain it to me someday. How do we shut these people down?
Well, really, I don't have the answers. But, around the time Prohibition happened, they were having underground parties. And maybe they think that they're taking on the cause or something, right?
You know what? That's actually a really good point. Maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they think it can't be that this doesn't apply to me. They seem that they have to know. But maybe they think, well, this is going to be our fight. Nobody's going to remember him. And I hope he gets what's coming to him. And I hope somebody figures out what that's going to be. Because it just puts a lot of stress on everybody else. And with the variant.
Well, I just hope that nobody gets sick from it.
Yes. Right, I hope for that too.
And number 2, yeah, because if somebody gets sick or somebody's parent passes or grandparent because of it, it would be terrible, and he has to certainly understand that. And how do you teach these guys a lesson? I'm not sure, other than a hefty fine and maybe some jail time, but
yeah, the individual and his significant other who flew up to the Yukon, that millionaire, and he ended up getting the vaccine ahead of everybody else. He had flown up there and said that he worked at the local hotel. Well, as punishment, they should make him fly up there and work at that local hotel for a couple of years. Maybe that's what this guy has to do, is he's got to flip cheeseburgers for the next couple of years as part of his community service. So,
well, you know what? He'll write a book and he'll sell it, and they'll make movies, and then he'll profit from it, right?
Lawrence, let's close it out there. Thank you kindly, as always. We started off somber and respectfully, because this is a show that connects the Métis community. And thank you again for continuing to assist in us being part of the Squeaky Wheel. Our friendship, our connection as co-hosts, I always enjoy. So thank you very kindly. Close us out, Lawrence.
Yes, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and hit subscribe. We're only hopefully to expand this podcast a little bit more and enhance it. And if you guys ever have any questions or answers, our email, I'm sure he'll show it on the screen here right now. But I would definitely send us a comment, or if you want us to, even to be a guest, perhaps. You know, if you're part of the Métis Nation, we're open for that too. So, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and not looking forward to this very cold February, but we had a very warm Christmas, so.
Yeah, we've been very lucky. So folks, TSW at Métis3.org. You can find us on our website, www.métis3.org. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Continue to share with your friends. Big shout out again to Madeline McCracken, who was here with us last week. She was such a delight, and we always appreciate you every week here at the Squeaky Wheel. Thank you kindly, folks, and be safe.